A simple elderly woman laughed out of jewelry store. She returns with $1 million purchase. Margaret Chen pulled her worn wool coat tighter as Chicago's autumn wind swept down Michigan Avenue. At 72, she preferred comfort over fashion. Her silver hair neatly pinned and practical shoes carrying her toward Cartwright and Associates' fine jewelry. The gleaming storefront promised luxury she could easily afford, though her modest appearance suggested otherwise. The crystal chandeliers inside cast warm light on polished marble floors. A young saleswoman named Jessica looked up from arranging tennis bracelets, her perfectly styled hair and tailored suit speaking of expensive taste. "Can I help you?" Jessica asked, her tone polite but distant as she assessed Margaret's faded coat and simple purse. "I'm looking for an engagement ring," Margaret said quietly. "Something special for my grandson's proposal." Jessica's smile strained as she took in Margaret's appearance. "Of course. We have some lovely pieces in our affordable collection." She gestured toward a small case at the back. "These start around $500. Margaret followed, noting how Jessica walked just fast enough to indicate she wanted this interaction brief. "These are pretty, but I was hoping for something larger. Perhaps a carat or more." Jessica's eyebrows rose. "Those pieces start around $15,000. Are you sure you want to look at those?" The condescension was subtle but unmistakable. Margaret had built a multi-billion-dollar software company from her garage. Yet here she stood being judged by her old coat. "Yes, I'd like to see them." With obvious reluctance, Jessica led her to the main display case. The rings were spectacular, each catching and multiplying the ambient lighting. "This one is lovely," Margaret said, pointing to a classic solitaire. "May I see it?" Jessica hesitated, glancing around nervously. "These pieces require serious consultation. Perhaps you'd like to consider financing options first." "I'd just like to hold it." Jessica placed the ring on a velvet pad rather than allowing Margaret to hold it directly. "This is $18,000. 1.2 carats. VS1 clarity. It's beautiful. Do you have anything larger? Perhaps 2 carats? Jessica's expression shifted to frank disbelief. I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name." "Chen. Margaret Chen." "Mrs. Chen, our 2-carat pieces start at $40,000. These require significant financial verification. Perhaps we should discuss what you're comfortable spending first." The manager, Robert, approached with a concerned expression. "Is everything all right here, Jessica?" "Mrs. Chen is interested in our premium engagement rings," Jessica explained, her tone suggesting she found this unlikely. Robert smiled with professional courtesy that didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. However, these are significant investments, and we require pre-qualification for viewings of our most expensive items. Store policy." Margaret felt the familiar weight of discrimination. "I see. And what would this involve? Credit check, bank statements, that sort of thing. Just to ensure we're all on the same page regarding budget expectations." The store had grown quiet, other customers and staff watching with varying degrees of amusement. Margaret felt heat rising in her cheeks, not from embarrassment about her finances, but from the profound unfairness of being judged by appearance alone. "I think I understand," Margaret said, her voice steady despite her churning emotions. "Thank you for your time." She turned toward the door, her dignity intact, but her heart heavy with disappointment. Outside on Michigan Avenue, Margaret stood watching well-dressed shoppers hurry past. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. "Hey, Grandma, still shopping for the ring today. Sarah's a size 6.5. Can't wait to surprise her." Margaret smiled despite her frustration. David's enthusiasm was infectious, and his love for Sarah evident in every conversation. They deserved the perfect ring, regardless of snobbish salespeople. At a nearby coffee shop, Margaret ordered black coffee and Googled herself. The search results were extensive. Margaret Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Technologies, had built her company into a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Forbes had listed her among America's richest self-made women for 5 consecutive years. But sitting in her comfortable old coat, Margaret understood why the jewelry store staff had made their assumptions. She'd never been one for flashy displays of wealth, preferring to invest in experiences and philanthropy rather than designer clothes. Her phone rang. "Ms. Chen, this is Patricia Williams from Williams & Associates Private Wealth Management. I wanted to follow up on the Chicago Children's Hospital grant. They're thrilled about your $20 million donation." "That sounds perfect. Patricia, do you know about high-end jewelry stores in the city?" Margaret explained her experience at Cartwright & Associates without mentioning the discrimination. "Oh, Cartwright's?" Patricia laughed slightly. "They cater to the new money crowd for truly exceptional jewelry. Our clients prefer Masterpiece Jewelers on Oak Street. Elena Volkov creates one-of-a-kind pieces starting around $50,000. Could you arrange an appointment?" "Absolutely. I could also help with something else. There's a private jewelry auction tomorrow evening, featuring a cashmere sapphire suite from a European estate. Very exclusive." "What kind of pieces?" "A 10-carat sapphire necklace, estimated between $800,000 and $1.2 million. Created by Cartier in the 1980s for a French countess." Margaret smiled. "Perfect. Can you arrange an invitation?" "Already done." The auction house was thrilled to have someone of your caliber participating. That evening, Margaret researched the sapphire suite. It was spectacular, the kind of jewelry that would make a statement impossible to ignore. She imagined walking back into Cartwright & Associates, wearing pieces worth more than most people's houses. More importantly, she thought about David and Sarah. They deserved a love story that began with something magical, not with discrimination in a jewelry store. The next morning, Margaret dressed in a charcoal wool suit tailored in London, paired with her mother's pearls. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. Understated elegance that whispered quality. At Masterpiece Jewelers, Elena Volkov met her personally. The jeweler was striking, with silver hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. "Mrs. Chen, what an honor. I've been following your healthcare technology innovations. Fascinating work." "Thank you. I understand you create custom engagement rings." Eleanor led her to a private studio that was part laboratory, part art gallery. "Tell me about the couple." "Love stories inspire my best work." Margaret shared David and Sarah's story. College sweethearts, Sarah's work as a pediatric nurse, David's environmental law career. Elena sketched as she spoke, her eyes lighting with creative energy. "What if we created something that speaks to renewal, to hope, a ring that tells their story?" Eleanor showed preliminary sketches, elegant designs incorporating meaningful elements, tiny sapphires representing the children Sarah cared for, emeralds symbolizing David's love of nature, all worked into a classic yet contemporary setting. "It's perfect. How long would this take?" 6 weeks. I'll personally set every stone." The price was $80,000, but Margaret didn't hesitate. This wasn't just an engagement ring. It was art to be treasured for generations. That evening, the private auction house buzzed with anticipation. Margaret had returned wearing an elegant black dress and diamond earrings, taking her seat as bidder number 47. When Lot 23 was announced, the cashmere sapphire suite, the room grew quiet. Bidding opened at $400,000 and quickly climbed. At $700,000, Margaret made her first bid. $900,000. The gallery owner who'd been bidding looked back in surprise, then countered at $950,000. Margaret responded immediately. $1 million. The room fell silent. At $1,050,000 from her competitor, Margaret didn't hesitate. $1,200,000. After a long pause, her competitor shook his head. sold to Paddle 47 for $1,200,000. The next morning, Margaret fastened the cashmere sapphire necklace around her throat. The stones caught the light magnificently, their deep blue complementing her silver hair. She'd chosen a simple black dress to showcase the jewelry. "We're making an impression today," she told Miguel, her driver, as they headed toward Cartwright and Associates. Margaret paused before Cartwright and Associates, checking her reflection in the store window. The transformation was remarkable. The same woman, but now wearing jewelry worth more than most annual salaries. The door chime announced her arrival. Jessica's face went through rapid expressions: confusion, recognition, then stunned amazement as she took in the sapphire necklace. "Good morning," Margaret said pleasantly. "I believe we met yesterday. I'm Margaret Chen." Jessica's mouth opened and closed without sound. Other customers had begun noticing Margaret's jewelry, conversations quieting as people stared at the spectacular necklace. "Yesterday, I was interested in engagement rings. You mentioned 2-carat pieces starting at $40,000. "Yes, that's correct." "Wonderful. I'd like to see them now, please." Jessica's hands trembled as she unlocked the display case. Word of Margaret's presence had spread quickly, and Robert watched from across the room with growing concern. "This is $45,000, Jessica said, her voice notably more respectful. "Internally flawless. D-color." Margaret examined the ring thoughtfully. "Do you have anything larger? Perhaps 3 carats? "Certainly." Jessica's eagerness was now apparent. "This is 3.2 carats. D-color, flawless, $78,000. Other customers had gathered at a respectful distance, drawn by the drama unfolding. "And your most expensive piece?" Jessica exchanged glances with Robert, who had edged closer. "A 5-carat pink diamond ring. $160,000. "May I see it?" Jessica carefully retrieved the ring, placing it on velvet with reverent care. The pink diamond was spectacular, its rare color and size making it a collector's piece. Margaret studied it carefully, then looked up with a pleasant smile. "It's beautiful. I'll take it." The words hung in the air before their impact registered. Robert stepped forward immediately. "Mrs. Chen, I'm Robert Harrison, the store manager. It's a pleasure to meet you." "Good morning, Mr. Harrison. I believe we met yesterday, though under different circumstances." Robert's face flushed. "Yes, about that. I hope you understand we have certain protocols." "Of course, I understand perfectly. Now, about this ring, I assume you accept bank transfers?" "Absolutely. Jessica will handle everything." As paperwork began, Margaret noticed a small crowd gathering outside the store. Word had spread about the woman in the $1 million necklace making a 6-figure purchase. "Mrs. Chen," Robert said quietly, "I want to apologize for any misunderstanding yesterday." Margaret met his eyes steadily. "The issue wasn't misunderstanding, Mr. Harrison. It was the assumption that my appearance told you everything about my character and financial capacity." Robert's discomfort was obvious. The store had grown quiet. Everyone listening. "You're absolutely right. There's no excuse for that treatment. I built a multi-billion-dollar company from nothing," Margaret continued calmly. "I employ thousands of people and donate more to charity than this store makes in years. But yesterday, none of that mattered because I wore an old coat." Robert was visibly sweating. "Mrs. Chen, let me offer you a significant discount. That's not what this is about. I want you to understand that every customer deserves basic respect, regardless of assumptions about their circumstances." She paused, letting her words sink in. "My late husband said you can tell a lot about someone's character by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Yesterday, you thought I couldn't do anything for you. Today, you know I can write a 6-figure check. But I'm the same person." Jessica had stopped working, clearly moved. Several staff members looked genuinely ashamed. You're absolutely right, Robert said finally. This experience will change how we train our staff. I hope so. The woman you dismissed yesterday might have been saving for months to buy her granddaughter a graduation gift. She deserved the same courtesy you're showing me now. The silence was profound. Margaret could see tears in Jessica's eyes. The transfer is complete, Jessica said quietly. And Mrs. Chen, I'm truly sorry about yesterday. You taught me something important. As Margaret prepared to leave, Robert made one final attempt. You'll always be welcome here. VIP treatment, private appointments. Margaret turned back with a slight smile. I don't want VIP treatment. I want the same respectful service you should give everyone. That's the only treatment that matters. 3 weeks later, Margaret sat in her favorite armchair with Buster at her feet when her phone rang with David's excited voice. Grandma! Sarah said yes. She loved the ring. When she saw what Eleanor created, it's the most beautiful thing ever. The story about each stone representing something meaningful to us. She says it's like wearing our love story. Margaret felt tears in her eyes, remembering Eleanor's meticulous craftsmanship. Tell me everything about the proposal, sweetheart. I took her to Millennium Park, to that spot where we had our first date. Remember how nervous I was when I told you my plan? But when I got down on one knee and opened that ring box, Sarah just gasped. She couldn't stop staring at it, turning it in the light. Then she started crying. Happy tears, she kept saying. When I told her about how you worked with Elena to make each element meaningful, about the sapphires representing the children she cares for, the emeralds for our love of nature. Grandma, she said it was like you understood her soul. Margaret's voice caught with emotion. Elena exceeded every expectation, creating not just a ring, but a masterpiece that will be treasured for generations. The documentation Elena created is incredible too. Sarah keeps reading the story about how the ring came to be. She says knowing the love and thought that went into every detail makes it even more special. I'm so happy for you both. When's the wedding? Next October. We want a fall wedding when the leaves are changing. And Grandma, Sarah specifically asked if you'd help plan it. She says you're not just my grandmother anymore. You're family to her too. She wants you involved in everything, from choosing flowers to the reception venue. After hanging up, Margaret reflected on the transformative month. The story of her experience had spread through Chicago's social circles like ripples in a pond. The Chicago Tribune had run a feature story titled The $1 Billion Lesson in Customer Service, and it had sparked conversations across the retail industry. Cartwright and Associates had implemented comprehensive customer service training changes. Robert had personally invited her back to speak to his entire staff about treating all customers with dignity, regardless of appearance or perceived social status. The session had been powerful, with several employees sharing their own experiences of making unfair assumptions about customers. We've started something we call the Margaret Chen Protocol, Robert had explained during her visit. Every new employee learns about unconscious bias and the importance of respectful service for everyone who walks through our doors. The story had resonated far beyond one jewelry store. Margaret had received dozens of handwritten letters from people across the country, sharing their own experiences of being judged by appearance, age, or background. An elderly man from Detroit wrote about being ignored at a car dealership until he mentioned he was paying cash. A young mother from Phoenix described being followed around a department store because of her casual clothing, despite having money to spend. These stories had motivated Margaret to take action. She'd begun working with the National Retail Federation and several major retail chains to develop comprehensive training programs focused on unconscious bias and inclusive customer service. The initiative, called Dignity in Every Transaction, was already being piloted in stores across 5 states. Elena had become not just a jeweler, but a dear friend. Their collaboration on a jewelry line supporting pediatric healthcare initiatives had exceeded all expectations. Healing Hearts, their collection, featured elegant pieces designed to appeal to philanthropically minded customers. Each purchase funded medical equipment for children's hospitals across the country, and they'd already raised over $500,000. You've turned a moment of discrimination into a movement of change, Elena had told her during their last meeting. Frank would be so proud of how you've honored his memory by standing up for others. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Williams. Saw the Chicago Magazine article about your customer service advocacy. Brilliant work. Also, the governor's office called. They want to discuss making your training program statewide policy. Margaret smiled, thinking about how one uncomfortable encounter had grown into something that could help countless others. Her assistant Rebecca had been fielding calls from business schools, wanting her to speak about leadership and ethical business practices. The doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. Miguel signed for a delivery from an expensive florist, an enormous arrangement of white roses and gardenias with a simple card. Mrs. Chen, thank you for teaching us about true class and dignity. With gratitude and respect, the staff at Cartwright and Associates. That afternoon, Margaret visited Elena's studio to see the completed wedding rings. The atelier was filled with autumn light, streaming through the skylights, casting everything in a warm golden glow. Elena led her to the private viewing room, where the wedding set lay displayed on midnight blue velvet. The craftsmanship was breathtaking, bands that flowed seamlessly with the engagement ring, creating unified art that spoke of enduring love. The men's band was elegant yet masculine, with subtle detailing that complemented David's personality. Sarah's wedding band nestled perfectly against the engagement ring, the curves designed to enhance rather than compete with the center stone. They're absolutely perfect, Elena. The way the band seemed to embrace the engagement ring. She thought about Frank and wished he could have seen how his advice about getting strategic rather than getting mad had played out so beautifully. His spirit seemed to whisper approval in the quiet house, reminding her that love and justice often walked hand in hand. Tomorrow she would continue running her company, pursuing her philanthropic work, and advocating for dignity in all human interactions. The Dignity in Every Transaction program would expand to new states, helping ensure that others wouldn't face the discrimination she'd experienced. But tonight, she was simply grateful for family both old and new, for love that transcended generations, for the ability to make a meaningful difference in the world, and for the profound reminder that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the positive impact one could have on other people's lives. The sapphires caught the lamplight one last time as she turned away from the mirror. Their deep blue glow, a reminder that the most precious things in life come to those who have the patience and wisdom to wait for them, and the courage to stand up for what's right when the moment calls for it.